what we're getting into now, really in terms of, I guess, in the context of AI, is we are starting to explore how AI could help our business. One area
Okay.
that we've seen it help our business with some of the available, I guess, AI systems out there would be for literature searches and summarizing literature search. So
Okay.
one of the challenges that we came across when we developed a tool for data collection, on one hand, it saved us a lot of time and resources because we didn't have to acquire an API in order to bring it into our data collection tool. On the other hand, we came to learn with the platform we were using that it was stored on their system, which was not HIPAA compliant.
Hello, welcome back to another episode of Second Brain, AI powered business thinking. I'm your host, Vimal Patel from RoundTechSquare. Today we have a guest in house, Mr. Raf Magar. He's a co-founder of Applied Healthcare Research Management, the brand which does a lot of brain work behind hardware in the medicine industry, as well as a lot of brain work and a lot of research on any kind of a medicines. They are a research brand. Welcome, Raf. Thank you very much for being on the call on the podcast.
Hi there. Good morning, Vimal. Good to be with you.
Oh, okay, thank you. Would you just take us to the journey of what applied healthcare research management is all about? Like, what do you guys do?
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to. Applied Healthcare Research Management, or ARM for short, started off as a CRO, or contract research organization, or clinical trial management organization, whereby we would run clinical trials on behalf of sponsors, primarily in the US. And those trials were used for submission to the FDA for potentially marketing approval of the products so they could sell it in the US and other countries around the world. Um, about 2 years after we started the company, we began to include what's referred to as HOR, or Health Economics and Outcomes Research. And that took clinical information and uh, turned that into economic data results so
Okay.
that not only could you establish the value of the product, but you could also submit some of that information to insurance companies for reimbursement. A drug or a device that is available for marketing or purchasing that does not have reimbursement from an insurance company is not likely to do very well.
Oh, okay, I see. So very interesting. So your brand or your company altogether who helps all these smaller or bigger enterprise level brands versus like all those independent brands to help them to navigate the whole journey of a product or any kind of hardware to kind of get to the market, get an approval, do all those compliances at the same time, work with the insurance so that they get the reimbursement so that their medicine can do more better in the market in terms of selling, taking care of the people, as well as doing also profitable business. So very very nice. The question would be, how are you using the technology in terms of doing all this research? I mean, I can imagine saying that this require a lot of like data check, a lot of information, a lot of
Mhm.
investigations, research, development. What do you guys do? How do you use the technology in that?
So we have several different um, needs around technology. When we first started, a lot of the data was captured electronically through an EDC system, and we found, this is maybe 20, 25 years ago, we found that the software or the packages that were available to us were very limited, and we had to constantly customize um, the data collection tools, which just pushed up the cost. So at one point, we just brought it in-house, and we were actually probably one of the first to develop our own EDC, electronic data capture.
Oh,
So when the data
okay.
is entered into the electronic file, we would have access to it immediately and could also, once it's clean, also be analyzed right away. We got out of that business because at that point, then we were becoming more of a software company, which is not why we initially started. And so since then, I think the EDC business or EDC industry has grown leaps and bounds, and there's all sorts of different companies that do this,
Okay.
based here in the United States and around the world. So that's one component of technology. The other component that we uh, use is more for analytics, SAS or R, which is what a lot of our analysts like to do. R tends to be available free of charge. SaaS tends to be a little bit more expensive, but it's how you can package data and send it to the FDA. And so that's where we started. What we're getting into now, really in terms of, I guess, in the context of AI, is we are starting to explore how AI could help our business. One area
Okay.
that we've seen it help our business with some of the available, I guess, AI systems out there would be for literature searches and summarizing literature search. So,
Okay. Okay.
to get some background on a disease state that we're working in, or what might be available from a health economic perspective, you can go onto the internet or you can go to Medline and do the search, and then you would have to summarize it. And that doesn't take too long, but it would maybe take a day or two. Now with AI, we can summarize all the available literature, publicly available literature, and very quickly understand the clinical and economic gaps that we're trying to evaluate as part of either a clinical trial or a health economic evaluation. So that's probably the most immediate and probably the most, I would say, uh, proven application for AI
Okay.
to date.
Okay. Nice. So the EDC system, the one you mentioned on a first scenario where
Yeah,
EDC systems are there to kind of help you out to take the data and then pass that information and package to the FDA or any other, bigger organization which is supposed to do the compliance into the approval process. Now the question is, I have worked with one of the EDC system back in pandemic time where we have to put the data into such a right way, and then that data goes to the central government where they were counting
yeah,
that how many tests were done, what were positive and negative and stuff like that, right? So the question is, while this technology is helping to navigate the whole data, what do you think that what changes? Because 25 years you said that you have created, invented your own EDC.
yeah,
So how was the whole journey, and then how people, you just mentioned that a lot of people just jump on that business as an independent business right now, and there are like
yeah,
tons and maybe a lot of EDC systems available. So how technology helped the whole system and to establish the whole environment
yeah.
of this data sharing.
Yeah, I think so. I think as technology companies became aware of EDC and its practical application, I think they just started simply writing their own code because it was very lucrative. And in fact, from a clinical trial perspective, um, in terms of margins, that is, components of a budget related to a clinical trial,
Okay.
things like the EDCs, the margins are very high, very rich, because you develop it
Okay.
once and you adapt it, and then you just use it over and over again, versus
Correct.
monitoring where they're sending potentially a human person on site, or reviewing data to confirm that it is accurate, things like that.
Yes.
So that certainly evolved, I think, just as a business opportunity, just because the margins are very thin. In fact, a lot of the large CRO companies have their own EDC for the most part. They
Oh,
don't do
wow.
off the
Okay.
shelf. Yeah. Uh,
Okay.
in our case, if we need an EDC, we don't develop it anymore. We will purchase something off the
The
shelf and adapt it
subscription.
to our needs. But I think the interesting thing now is with AI, you can actually ask AI to build an EDC system
Okay.
based on your needs. The limitation is, however, and this is a big limitation right now, is how accurate is that data collection? And then once you start informing the tool, what does it look like on the back end? If you have your own
Okay.
EDC system, you can do all those quality checks as you develop it, and then as you populate it with dummy data, fake data, and see what it looks like at the other end for analysis. So I think that's an
Okay.
opportunity for, um, I would say, not only CROs, but I think it's an opportunity for pharma companies who don't have big budgets to hire, let's say, a CRO and spend millions and millions of dollars during a startup phase, where they can start developing very efficiently their own EDC system for data collection.
Okay. Beautiful. So very, very, very nice to know that, this kind of systems are running through that fundamental, kind of a pillar of a technology where data is driven through the technology and then getting to the point A to point B. So nice. In the whole flow of this whole EDC system versus your work, where what you do for the brand and then, kind of help all the different enterprise, kind of people. how is the whole data safety or security? Is there any
Yeah,
concern you are seeing or you wanted to point out saying that, okay, hey, sometimes it gets too in your kind of
yeah,
system saying that, okay, hey, what about my data? I mean, what is the security? Because
yeah,
FDA or anything medicine, it's important. It's just kind of like very
yeah,
very secretive sometimes as well. So
yeah.
what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's a concern because we've used AI in other areas as well, and if you're not familiar with regulatory requirements and patients, patient safety, well, I shouldn't say patient safety, but patient data security, it's something to consider. One of the challenges that we came across when we developed a tool for data collection, on one hand, it saved us a lot of time and resources because we didn't have to acquire an API in order to bring it into our data collection tool. On the other hand, we came to learn with the platform we were using that it was stored on their system, which was not HIPAA compliant.
Okay.
So we then had to evaluate, okay, well, where else, what other platform can we run this application on that we built? It was AI application that allows you to build software, data collection, specific data collection tool. And like most things, it landed on an AWS system. So it'd have to be run on top of an AWS system, which is HIPAA compliant. A lot of software, as I'm sure you know, runs off
Well,
AWS.
yes, of course.
So that's a
Yes.
that's a major consideration. You can collect data. You can collect data with any tool. You can collect data with Excel, right? But where that data is
Okay.
stored, does it meet,
That's important.
HIPAA compliant? And you don't want to be in a situation where you're close to a submission to the FDA or Health Technology Association and come to find out that your data, there was, some security issues around where you stored your data. So these are all things that you have to evaluate early on, the very beginning. So
Okay.
although it seems very straightforward, there's a lot of other considerations that can be very costly later on.
Okay. Okay. Nice. So what I'm learning right now is that in the industry, like, this healthcare industry or the specifically brand like yours, the tech can be created, but has to be very much into boundary of all the compliances. It could be HIPAA, it could be ISO. It could be like, making sure that all those corners are very secure and then make the tech within that environment so that, it is kind of follow
Yeah,
through and then can be used at the best case scenario.
yeah,
Okay. Now, applied healthcare research management, right? They help a lot of those enterprise brands and then people, right? So now question is, those brands, when they're trying to get to a market, when they're trying to get an approval from FDA, of course, they must be coming to the brands like yours. How are they choosing one on another one who is using more technology and AI driven versus who is maybe not, or maybe still be like, kind of a decade old with
yeah,
the in the terms of using the tech and AI? Like, how are they making those smart decisions saying that if I'm doing my research, if I have maybe like, stethoscope to get to a
yeah,
market to which required FDA approval, for example, right? So I'm looking at your brand, Applied Healthcare Research Management, that it does all those things. I have a lot of visibility, and then somebody is just still old company, but not there, right, in terms of showing the power of using the tech in the
yeah,
research and in their whole process of work. So how are they choosing that? How we are different in that?
yeah. Boy, if I knew the answer to that, I think I'd be retired by now, right? I mean, it's um, the interesting thing is I think to some extent it depends on the buyer and their SOPs, standard operating procedures, and
Okay,
how they view things and how many boxes do they want checked off with one company. Um,
I
there
see.
are some
Okay,
companies that are really focused on going with large, for example, in the clinical trial world, large CROs, and so they'll go with, the large companies that have, thousands of employees for probably security reasons, the ability to maybe take on, multi-center, multinational trials. So they're doing several countries all at once, and that makes,
I
perfect
see.
sense. If we were to, and we've been involved in some of those engagements in the past, but they require significant ramp up,
I see.
and that would not be something I'd want to consider because just of the capital required to connect all the dots with all these different countries and regulatory requirements and things like that. Um, Generally speaking, companies that are, I think, educated, whereby they
Okay,
understand that they can knock out both the clinical and economic at the same time, right? It's very efficient.
understood.
It's only till recently that was considered. And the reason you have to do that, you need to consider that because there's a very important question that you have to truly understand if to succeed with not necessarily approval, but adoption. Um, and what is the price point of your product,
I see.
right? It used to
Okay,
be
okay.
we're newer, we can charge 20, 30, 40% more because we're a new product, device,
New
or
product. Okay,
pharmaceutical company. But that's not really the case anymore because the market may not bear that. The justification for a
understood.
20, 30% increase in a price point for either a novel drug, really is no
Okay,
comparison, or a me too, a newer drug, maybe a newer class of drug in the same disease
okay,
category. If it's not justified, you won't get it. And so what ends up happening is you go to market and you're priced too high and you have no choice but to lower the price. And then that, causes a lot of challenges internally because the projections are all based on a set price. So we can
understood.
address a lot of that. There's a couple of other things that are sort of coming to market, or sort of, again, it depends on how educated your client is. The other area that we have a lot of expertise is the communication or the medical education. So you have
Okay,
information, you have a
okay.
story to tell, you publish it, everyone publishes, but then
That's
how do
right.
you influence the right customer, whether it be a clinician, physician, the user,
Okay.
or the insurance company? They refer to that to
Oh, I
market
see.
access. So it's one thing to collect the data and analyze it, but there's a whole nother level of expertise required to disseminate it so that it influences the person. And as you may appreciate, in our world, in dealing with a lot of clinicians, they're not interested in all the detailed, statistical analysis. They want to know that it's a credible, robust analysis and what's the take-home message ultimately. They have
Okay,
about maybe
okay,
3 to 4 minutes
nice.
to read an article. They don't have,
Yes,
2 hours
the
to read
whole
an
time to
article.
research, research.
You
Okay.
know,
I think the last point what you have very smartly mentioned, saying that doesn't matter how the tech and data analytics reports and all those things can help you to kind of push your brand further, but at the same time that sense of expertise and then years of experience, that's what these
yes,
these customers are always looking for, and then that cannot be replaced by AI. I mean, it doesn't matter how good. You have the establishment or you have the services of data and AI, but again, that small thing which cannot be replaced with those years of experience. That being
yeah,
said, just a one last question, saying, is there any scope, or if you can just saying, if you raise the hand and say that, okay, hey, in our industry or in this whole kind of circle, we are still lacking of this kind of a task automation or this kind of a feature build or this kind of
yeah,
platform we are looking. If we wish we had it, that not only help applied healthcare, but at the same time the whole circle of the whole workflow of approval to the
yeah,
market and then to all the strategy. One thing, if you can just tell us, which can
yeah.
make us think.
I can speak through experience. Technology. You cannot succeed without the use of technology to scale up. I mean,
Agree.
that's something that anyone in our industry and just anyone who's a consultant or involved in health economics or clinical, I think just about any business without technology, just because there's so much information to
Yes.
process. I would say that if you don't embrace technology and more specifically AI, you're probably going to fall behind very quickly, right? Now,
Agree.
here's where it becomes a significant opportunity for developers. One of the things that I've seen in some of our work and clinicians I'm working with when they're looking at software applications in, let's say, medical education, they
Okay.
point out that the person who wrote the application was not a physician. Technology's there,
Oh,
and it's
okay.
not. So what do they want to do? I'm going to develop it myself. Now, the practicality of a physician developing their own platform and their own, SaaS is just not there, right?
Non feasible.
So
Okay.
I would
Yes.
say that is a gap where, and I've seen that consistently, where I think technology type of companies get into areas but don't necessarily haven't spent the time really understanding the customer and the practical need.
Okay.
And some of that just has to do with, unless you're, for example, if you're developing medical education in the gastroenterology space, a gastroenterologist would be a good
Hmm.
person to do the
To
coding,
develop
but
that, to the
develop
coding,
it,
yeah,
right?
but he
But
cannot
how
do
many
it. He's a
gastroenterologists do you
definite,
know that
yeah,
have coding expertise,
yeah,
right?
zero.
Probably, I
I
don't know,
mean,
10
pretty
in the
much,
world or something, right? That,
yeah, maybe, yeah, that's
but
true.
but here's the interesting thing is with the availability of different applications now, and I'm using the terms maybe very loosely, maybe incorrectly, but with the ability with access to AI, clinicians can now develop, a application for their needs that's more specific because they don't have to write the code. They just tell the AI what they want, and it's quite interesting.
That's true.
We haven't seen how effective it is because it hasn't really been tried, at least in our world, with some of my colleagues. But that's where AI is becoming an advantage as opposed to spending a lot of money in developing code. You can use AI, but there's still that learning curve that's required,
True.
and there's still that
Agree.
validation of the
Yeah.
application that you develop using AI. Does it actually work? Is it accurate? That's an unknown to us right
Wow.
now.
Okay. Wow. Wow. Okay. So I think what you summarize is very, very awesome because a doctor, if the doctor codes that, that's going to be a wonderful product. Or if the technology person who knows the coding also be a doctor, can be also the same scenario. But again, that combination is just very hard to
Very
find. Like
rare.
the way you said, like 10 in the world, right? So now the only thing it left us by thinking, saying that how can be more smart enough to collaborate with those medicine professionals or an experienced person who knows the whole thing after and during, and then built it with them, instead of
Yep.
doing a technology out there, putting on a lot of different compliances and everything, and hope and pray that it works well with the doctor fraternity or the whole medicine industry, versus collaborate with them, sit down with them. Maybe it takes longer time than usually it's supposed to be done, but it's okay to do that. But at the end of the day, you will have a wonderful product, a wonderful piece of technology. So
That's going to
thank
be
you, Raf.
used.
It was
That's going to be used by
Yeah,
the
that's going to be
colleagues. I mean,
used. Yeah,
yeah,
and then
and they'll pay for it
scalable
and they'll spend the
growth.
money on it.
Yeah, and then
Yeah,
then the money is always be a
yeah.
part of it. Yeah. Oh yeah. So nicely said. So thank you very much, Raf, to take us to the whole journey of applied healthcare. Not only we learn that how you are using the tech and AI, but at the same time there is a big space or a vacuum, a very unique vacuum to think of, and then to work on. And then that gives us a lot of motivation. So a lot of it will open a lot of people's eyes, saying that okay, hey, there is a lot of scope, but at the same time,
Yeah.
this is something, if you can kind of kill it, I think it can be a huge or big for the mankind. But thank you very much for
Yeah.
being over here, Raf. Wonderful to chat with you. And the last question before I let you go, if somebody wants to get to know more about your research and about your brand, if somebody can refer to someone who are into the industry or looking for something like that, where can we
Great
find you? Where
photos.
can we reach you at?
Yeah, if they want to get in touch with us, you can go to our website, arminc, AHRMINC, .com,
Okay.
or you
Okay.
can go to LinkedIn and just look up my name,
Okay.
and you can also get in touch with us that way as well.
Okay, beautiful. I
Okay.
will I will mention your websites, and I'll mention your LinkedIn links on the video itself, and then
Okay.
people can look for you and then try to connect with you. But till the
Okay.
next time,
Great.
thank you very much, Raf, and you are wonderful, and you give us a lot of insights.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate the
Yeah.
opportunity. Right. Bye bye.